Everyone said he had no chance, too young, too small, too inexperienced. But the giant in front of him was never the real problem. This is the story of David and Goliath. Two armies stood facing each other across a valley in ancient Israel. On one side, the Philistines. On the other, King Saul's army, including David's 3 older brothers. For 40 days, neither side moved, because every single day, a Philistine champion stepped forward and shouted the same challenge across the valley. His name was Goliath. He stood over 9 feet tall. His armor alone weighed more than most men could lift. His challenge was simple: send one man to fight me. Whoever wins, their whole army wins. King Saul even promised riches, his own daughter in marriage, and freedom from taxes to anyone brave enough to accept. Still, for 40 days, no one did. Every day for 40 days, Goliath repeated his challenge, and every day, Israel's entire army stood frozen. Not one soldier, not even the strongest, most experienced warriors, was willing to step forward. They didn't lack weapons. They didn't lack courage in other battles. They simply looked at the size of the problem and decided it was too big to face. Sometimes, the giant in your life doesn't have to move at all. It just has to look big enough to freeze you. David wasn't afraid of Goliath's size because he had faced danger before, just not the kind anyone was watching. Out in the fields, alone, David had already fought off lions and bears that attacked his father's sheep. No applause, no army watching. Just David, his sling, and his trust that God was with him, even when no one else was looking. The courage he showed at the battle line wasn't new. It had been built in seasons nobody saw. Saul offered David his own armor and sword. David tried it on and took it right back off. It wasn't his, it wasn't tested, it wasn't who he was. Instead, David picked up the one weapon he actually knew how to use, a simple sling and 5 smooth stones from a nearby stream. He didn't need Saul's armor to win. He needed his own faith and the tools God had already trained him to use. David walked out to face Goliath with nothing but a sling and a shepherd's staff. Goliath looked at him and laughed. "Am I a dog that you come at me with a stick?" He mocked David in front of both armies. But David wasn't shaken. He answered with words that have echoed for 3,000 years. "You come against me with a sword and spear, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty." This wasn't arrogance. It was a teenager who had already decided where his confidence actually came from. And it wasn't his own strength. David ran toward Goliath, not away from him. He placed a stone in his sling, swung it once, and let it fly. The stone struck Goliath directly in the forehead. The giant who had terrified an entire army for 40 days fell face down to the ground in a single moment. When the Philistine army saw their champion fall, they turned and ran. One ordinary act of courage, rooted in God, ended a war that fear couldn't even begin to fight. Maybe your giant doesn't carry a sword and shield. Maybe it looks like a diagnosis you weren't expecting. A debt that keeps growing no matter how hard you work. An addiction you've tried to quit 100 times. A relationship you don't know how to fix. Whatever it is. Here's the question. David's story asks you, are you sizing up the giant or sizing up God? What's easy to miss in this story is that David didn't win because he was secretly skilled with a sling. He'd practiced that skill for years, protecting sheep from wolves and lions. God didn't hand him a miracle out of nowhere. He used exactly what David already had, plus a faith that the size of the enemy doesn't determine the outcome. Every soldier in that valley had the same eyes. They all saw the same 9-foot giant. The difference wasn't what David saw, it was who David trusted while he looked at it. Your giant today is real. Your fear is valid, but it doesn't get the final word. God does. You don't have to feel brave to do what David did. He was a teenager nobody expected anything from. He simply refused to let the size of the problem decide the size of his faith. Whatever giant is standing in your valley, today, sickness, fear, failure, a closed door, you don't need someone else's armor to face it. You need what you already have. The tools God's already given you and a willingness to trust Him instead of the size of what's in front of you. So what does trusting God with your giant actually look like today? It might look like naming it honestly in prayer instead of pretending it isn't there. It might look like taking one faithful step, even a small one, instead of waiting until you feel brave enough. It might simply look like remembering how God has carried you before and trusting He hasn't stopped now. Defeat your giants with faith. God still moves mountains. Subscribe